There's no decision.
But the Obama administration, if you recall in the beginning, was actually willing to, I believe, even transfer KSM, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind behind the 9/11 attacks, to New York City. And then in a moment that I think was a harbinger of many things to come, the Attorney General of the United States said, well, don't worry, I mean, we're going to find him guilty. And so you're sort of like, well, why exactly are we having a trial then, Attorney General? But we didn't ask that question.
That was in 2009, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
We didn't ask that too
early
pointedly.
on.
They recognize, well, just imagine if one of these guys deemed too dangerous goes through trial and then is for some reason, procedural or otherwise, found innocent. It's not incomprehensible, and no administration seems as willing, because I think our guess is correct. Maximum security federal prison is good enough to hold other terrorists. Right. It would be good enough to hold them. They wouldn't escape. It's a question of actually putting them through that process without exposing sources and methods, which is a big issue, and then the possibility, which I think is very, very small, but the possibility somebody would get off.
Sorry. I'm probably the lone squish on this, but when I listened to Obama in 2007, I have some sympathy for him, especially given what you just said. I mean, we're saying, so we know somehow, magically, cosmically, that they're so dangerous, but we don't have the evidence for it, and we can't possibly give them a trial in case they're found innocent. I mean, doesn't the left have a...
That actually is pretty much
the left have a point. Look, I'm sympathetic as well to the concept. You can't just hold people forever and never prove a case, but at the same time, you have to be somewhat... This isn't leading me to an answer of keeping Gitmo, but you have to be pragmatic and understand this. What I just described exists. Guys too dangerous to release and not enough evidence to convict.
If we have, for example, the Pentagon with sources, other human sources, or let's say they're picking up cell phone calls in a war zone, that's not going to be admissible, nor would it want to be admissible. But if he's like, yeah, that's right, wage jihad, kill as many Americans as you can, we're pretty sure.
But I thought that's why we created the military tribunals, was to address that issue of discovery information coming out. Isn't that true, Lorraine?
Well, actually, to some extent, yes. You've got very unusual, different rules for the military commissions. Frankly, I believe one of the reasons they want to maintain the offshore prison is because they don't want that exposed to the light of day. I can tell you right now, things that go on in that courtroom are nothing like what go on in a U.S. courtroom. And the truth is, if the American people saw how the rule of law was being twisted and thrown out the window, I think they would be aghast.
Well, I can say that the conditions at Gitmo that was one of the issues early on, that people thought that this was inhumane. And I can tell you, I know for a fact that the government spent hundreds of millions of dollars to upgrade their conditions there. And it is like Club Med for terrorists at Guantanamo Bay. And I've been to the Supermax facility in Colorado, and those guys going over there would be a change of pace. They wouldn't have soccer fields where they'd run around. They wouldn't have personal librarians to bring them Arabic books. It would be a whole different ballgame for them in Colorado than it is in Gitmo.
Well, they're teaching these terrorists how to watercolor paint.
Right.
I mean, they're teaching them calligraphy. They're doing all this stuff. You mentioned the soccer field, but also, if we could just get back to the point that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, he was captured in 2003. More than 10 years later, we're just now in the pre-trial hearings. Is there any reason why, this is the mastermind of 9/11, it should take more than a decade to try this guy?
No, that's a question.